All right, so the next thing I kind of want to do is, so we did like if we were just going to completely replace weights. That's kind of, I showed you that method. Next thing I want to do is show you how to like adjust weights. So for instance, I'll show you on the knee here. Okay, so see how it's kind of, I think generally it bends kind of nice, but see how we're like losing a bunch of volume right here? Also, mind you, that the knee is never going to go this way, right? So I don't have to worry about this being like torn per se. So I want to make this a little bit better. So we're just going to try and fix this in order to get better deformation. So one thing is kind of handy to do is to grab, I'm going to grab both of these because these both are the knee. I'm going to go over here, I'm going to hit S, and then we'll go on some odd number. We'll go like this, and then we'll hit S. Okay, so we'll just do a post S. And then what I can do is I can scrub back and forth, and then afterwards, I'll just delete these keys. But that way I can kind of see it as I'm working on it. It makes it easier in some particular instances. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to grab this, right click, paint skin weights. Now what we're going to do is, I like how it like seems to know where to, anyway. So we're going to look at this and I'm going to look down. Okay, this joint shouldn't have any effect up here because that's the ankle. So I'm not really too worried about that one. This one, however, should have effect. So you'll notice that as it goes up, this is squishing in too much, right? Like, see how it's kind of going inwards? So what that means is if I gave this more influence over this, right? See how it's not white? It's like a deep yellow. It's like a slightly orange yellow. And this is like red. What that means is that these other joints are having an effect. So if this joint's not moving at all, so let's select that one. See how this one has influence over this? See how there's a little bit of red? That means that this is keeping it. If this had its say, this leg would be completely straight because this didn't get bent at all. The more influence I put of this joint onto these vertices, the more that they're going to be being pushed upwards with the rest of the leg, right? Because it'll have more effect on it. So that's what we're going to do. So to do that, what I want to do is this. I didn't really discuss this too much before, but there's replace, add, and smooth. What replace does is this. Let's say I put 0.1. If I paint, I'm going to do it here because this hopefully won't break it too bad. If I paint 0.1 here, it's going to literally, where's my, how come I can't see it? It's weird. Okay, we'll just do it here. If I were to paint 0.1 here, what it's going to do is it's literally going to replace, do I have vertices selected or something? Why is this doing this to me? Replace this 0.1. It's going to literally replace the value with 0.1. And I can paint that as many times as I want, and it's just going to make it so the value of that is 0.1, right? You never want to do that. Here's the reason why. So I just made this 0.1, right? Remember, this has to have a total value of 1, right? Like the total value of joints affecting it needs to be 1. So what do you assume? You're probably assuming that this joint or this next joint got replaced, right? So now if that's 0.1, this is now 0.9, right? Or maybe this has a little bit of influence too. But let's test that out. I'm going to go to Window, General Editors, Component Editor. And not too bad, actually. That's pretty close to what I would have, not what I've expected. So if you look, it is leg 1, joint 1, joint 2, and joint 3. So put 0.1 here, and it did just give it to the other 2, okay? Now, the problem is, though, I've had it happen where I painted something, like I replaced it, and then it was like an ear that affected it now. Because it doesn't know where to put the influence, so it just guesses. And you don't want the computer to guess, because the computer's an idiot. So what you want to do instead is always use add. If I use add and have a value of 0.1, this is what happens. And you see I have that vertice still selected, so I need to make sure I have, there we go. If I do 0.1, when I click on it, it's going to add 0.1. So now this is an influence of 0.2 of this joint. If I do it again, now it is 0.3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Now it's 100%. Okay? So add will always just add on top of. Replace just means you can paint as many times as you want. It's just going to be that value. But don't use that because you might make a value lower than what it currently is. And then those values have to go somewhere and you don't always know where. So I'm just going to keep it, let's say, we'll do a value of 0.1. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add these over here because these should have more influence anyway onto this part here. Don't mind that. Okay, and we'll just kind of go like that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add more influence, 0.1, like that, onto that area, like so. Okay, so now you'll see when I bend up, I'm not losing as much volume. Now, I am still losing a little bit in here, so what I'll do is I'll keep this as 0.1, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint like, you know, another, maybe that little one there again, right? Like, okay, that's a little bit better. Looks like there's a little bit influence there. That's not good. So let's see. And that now loses a little less volume. But if you look up here, see how this one's going in a little too much? So what we need to do is just do the same thing on the other side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to joint 2, and then we'll go to joint 1, okay? And if you look, you can see this should not move so much. So I'm going to leave this at 0.1, and I'll just make this a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to add some influence on the back of the leg here. And then you'll see when it goes up, it's not affecting this area. All right. This one's moving a little more than what I'd like. So I'm just going to go and I'll just kind of do a 0.1 right here, like so, just so that it's a little bit tighter, right? So now it moves a little bit less with those joints. Now, the problem with this, though, you may have noticed, is that I lost a little bit of subtlety. It was nice when it was moving a little bit. See how it's like not moving much? Like it's almost like oddly static. Okay. Like there should be a little bit of movement. Like if you look right here, I think that's a little bit better. So what you could do is you could try to add some influence of this joint onto it. You could also just do this. That's use smooth. So with smooth, I am going to use the feather. You can use one of these two, okay? And what we're going to do is I'm going to select joint 2. So what I don't want to do is this. I want to remove, if you think about it, the influence of this joint a little bit so that it's this. But if this is 100%, I don't know where that influence is going to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to joint 2. I'm going to use smooth, make it a little bit bigger, and I'm going to paint up into it. I don't know if you can tell, but it's very subtly adding a little bit of influence. Okay. Now, when it goes up, see there's a little bit of movement there. Right? And I'm going to do kind of the same thing underneath here. So I think that this leg, this joint, should have a little bit more of an effect on this as well. So I'm just going to smooth that like so. And now you can see it's a little bit tighter than it was before. Right? We're not losing as much volume, but there is a nice little bit of subtlety of flexion. Okay, and we can apply that same basic concept to the other one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say that's good enough. I'm going to grab both of these joints. These are the two that I had the keys on. I'm going to go here. I'm going to right click over top of it and delete to delete that key. Do not hit delete. That will just delete these. You have to right click on this and choose delete. Then we'll go to the first one. I'm going to right click and delete. Okay, so now there's no keys on that. And you could just apply the same principle basically to the elbow here, right? So if you remember when this bends, right, see how it looks a little bit, could be a little bit better. Like I feel like this could be a little bit stronger. That elbow gets kind of weak. The knee gets a little weak down there too. But see how that it feels like it's like losing its strength. So what I'm going to do is we'll just do the same thing. I'm going to key here, go over here. I'm just going to bend it forward. The nice thing is I only have to worry about it bending. Oh, there it goes. I only have to worry about it bending in one direction, right? Because the elbow doesn't bend this way. If it does, you got bigger problems. So we'll go to this. I'll hit Y to bring up the last tool we used, which was this. And now what I want to do is affect this a little bit better. So for one, right off the bat, I thought this just looks like hard. So I just want to add, I'm going to keep smooth. I'm going to keep it on this. And I'm just going to add a little bit of value to this bicep here by just doing smooth. You just kind of smooth it out. So that way when he goes up, it's a little bit of flexion, right? That looks a little bit better, I think. Okay, that's good. Now, the other thing I want to do is, I think that's fine. The front of the arm's fine. I would like this back of the arm, though, right here. Like there's this kind of strong elbow, and then it feels like it's not as good as I'd like. So what I want to do is I want to make this more with this, right? Because when you flex this over, right, you have the olecranon process, like the ulna is shown, or yeah, the ulna is right here. So I'm just going to add more influence there. So I'm going to go to add, go back to this guy. We'll leave it at 0.1. And I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to add some more influence onto the elbow here. Like that. So that way when it comes forward, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint. We'll go like this. Okay, we'll just do a lot. All right. So that way it just feels like it's a little bit stronger connected with it. Now, if you look, it's kind of tearing right there. So I'm just going to go back to smooth. Okay. And then I'm going to go to the joint above because I want to remove some of this. And then we'll do this. I'll make this a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to kind of try and smooth that out a little bit. Nothing too crazy. If you find the smoothing is doing too much, just play with the opacity a little bit. But that way it's not tearing quite so badly. And we'll do the opposite. I will go to this one and I will add a little bit of it to here as well so that it grabs a little bit more of that. Okay. Hopefully this makes sense. All right. So now we've got a little bit better of a stronger elbow. There's a little bit of a bend there. That looks a little bit better. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Now, yeah, we'll just go with that. So we'll call that good. So you can make adjustments to the ones that do that by just kind of like, if you want to just go through, you could literally just paint the whole model just doing this. And you're like, oh, you know what? I don't like quite the way that's doing, and just add a little bit more here, remove a little bit more there. The next things I'm going to tackle, so we'll call this video good. And then the next one we'll tackle some more difficult areas, such as this and this. These are the hard parts, are doing the shoulder, rib cage area, and this, because there's multiple joints getting affected.